Welcome to the Gold Medal Excellence Podcast. I'm your host, Alexander Payne, along with my co-host, Chris Asher. And today in the program, we're joined by track and field legend, Michael Granville. Michael, thanks for coming on the program.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation. Oh yeah.
Mike, thanks for
What's up,
coming out.
Yes.
It's been a few years since we've spoken, so glad to catch
Yeah,
you.
yeah. It's been a pandemic. I've had another baby. Yeah, so yeah.
Oh man.
Lots going on, bro. Glad to see you again, man.
Oh man. Congratulations on a new baby.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, she's almost 4 now, so
oh wow.
yeah. She told I just walked in the house and she told me, "Daddy, be quiet. The babies." And she has a little baby dolls and all that stuff. So this is her world. I'm walking into her house.
That's right.
All right, so I'm going to get started. Start from the very beginning. Born and raised in Bell Gardens, California. Attended school there throughout your high school years. Talk more about what it was like growing up there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Grew up Bell Gardens, Cudahy, East Los Angeles area, family. I have 2 brothers, 2 sisters, mom and dad. Mom just passed away. Rest in peace, mama. But we grew up in a very, it was grinding. We grew up on government assistance, so a lot of our entertainment was with each other. My dad's goals and family's goals were family, God, and being the best we could as a human, being a good citizen. With that, one thing he did say was, we ain't got no money for college, so you're gonna have to find a way to get there on your own, either through art, through education, or sports. And I think that combination of 3 helped us all, make it through that path. My brother is a concert pianist. My sister is a theater actress. My other sister, she was a salutatorian at Bell Gardens. My other brother, he doing pretty good. He opened up businesses in high school and stuff. So, and then me, myself, being able to make a path through track and field too was kind of how we all made our way through higher learning and through the society.
Wow, I didn't know that. I knew you had a sister. I think we've talked.
Yeah.
Wow, that a pianist, a classic
pianist.
pianist.
Yeah. One time we was up at Max's Cafe, and the Max's Cafe is one of these places that the menu is like encyclopedia. There's so many things in there, but it's a pretty cool place. But they had a piano, and this was in San Francisco. They had a piano in the corner, and he asked us like, "Hey, is it okay if I use the piano?" He goes, "You know how many?" The waiter said, "You know how many people ask can they play the piano, just come up there and ruin the mood?"
Yeah.
And so we make a rule that it's not allowed, and we're all just saying, "No, he can really play. He can really." So some kind of way, Mario, convinced the waiter to go up there, and somebody was actually playing. And so he went up there and did some kind of Symphony Number 9. It was an airplane commercial. But that thing is longer than just that 30-second commercial. And he played like the whole 10, 15 minutes of parts that I didn't know. By the time he was done, the whole outside was surrounding the window looking in. People were standing up, and the waiter was like, "Man, I wish I would have known you can play like that. I would have comped your dinner already because we already paid." So
yeah.
No, man. We're definitely interested on where we're all in the same place. It might be a 3.0 airplane, so definitely bring a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, you also got started in track and field, as you said. Your father trained you on a grass field nearby Bell Gardens Middle School, separately from the rest of the team. Your father had preached to you that training on grass makes you work harder. Talk more about how the technique of training on grass makes you more effective as an athlete.
Well, there was his ideal of one with the grass being high grass, and it made me really lift my feet, use my hip flexors to get off the ground, and it was bigger than it's about 500 meters around the circumference around big irregular shaped square.
Yeah.
And so whenever he was a master of just strengthening the mind and sometimes fooling the mind into doing things, and so or making yourself feel a lot more confident and when you be able to get into the competition. So whenever I go to a track after winter and preseason of training on grass, he says, "Doesn't this place look smaller doesn't this look small? And you had that feeling of, yeah, this is not so. So it kind of took the edge off of just being on the tracks, and then and it was just something that I also was just getting redundant. So redundancy around track, I can understand how you want to break out. That's why people cross some of the distance runner like cross country, because they're not just running around that oval. So when you get to the track, it was just something new. So with that three combinations of kind of tricking the mind, into thinking that wasn't as threatening, to getting away from the monotonous of just running around that oval, and three really pretty much helped strengthen my gait, my hip flexor strength, and just kind of it's more of a strength training type of tactic for your stride.
Yeah, I hear you on that because I
Mm-hmm.
remember my first college practice. We're at Northridge. We're in a grass field.
Yeah.
Even as a college coach in the fall and the off season, you didn't want your kids on the track a lot. You wanted, yeah, you said it. If you were in a big field at a park, it made the track look small.
Made it look
And
small.
and you had to work harder. It's like once you got off the grass field and got on the track, you were rolling. Like, oh,
yeah, it felt, you didn't even have to put your spikes on. You just felt that same energy put in the grass, and that track will respond back with that energy bouncing back up. So, no, you feel the difference and stuff too. In a lot of ways, you brought it up, coaching was just kind of saving your legs and run on the track. Do how we run on the beach. We'll do like a beach run on the weekends, and then in Sinwale we'll do a lot of boxing. That was a big part of my training too during the preseason. If you look at Rocky IV, any of the Rockies, that was he would get some ideas from training there. You'll see him training in Rocky III with Apollo on the beach. We had the heavy bags. We had the whole setup in our garage, tires, lifting logs, lifting unorthodox. And I think there was another way of just getting that grind, that grindy grind of training, not looking pretty, not having the latest sweatsuit. And I think he was having that idea, which the Rocky themes were kind of about, especially Rocky IV. He didn't want to get it all into the big training with like the Russian. He wanted to get in the snow, pushing the car. I mean, I pushed the 1972 Cadillac. That was one of my strength training workouts to get out. Wow. The 1972 Cadillac, my mom was in the front, my dad's next to me with a whistle and a stopwatch, and I would have to push that thing, 100 meters at a time, and then push it back for recovery. One time it was really getting hard as I was going, and I found out that my mom had her foot on the parking brake. So I was like, and it was still pushing. So I guess that was part of the training. That unorthodox training was something that I like to bring to what I do with my boot camps now at GFIT, and also when I was doing coaching at the local high schools.
Awesome.
Yeah, you become a youth track and field star, run the 800 meters in 1 minute 56 seconds in the 8th grade. Then you go to high school and start your career off of a bang. As a 9th grader, you compete indoors with success, win the prestigious Arcadia International, run 1:51:03 as a freshman before having even more age group success in the summer junior season. Talk more about your early teenagers.
Yeah, so you brought up the 800. I didn't start running the 800 till about 8th grade, so I was 14. It was at 1992. I grew up wanting to be 200 meter runner. I like speed. I like to run fast. My dad was a 660 runner, 800 meter runner, 400 meter runner. He went to Northridge too, coach. And his whole thing was track and field. He wanted me to create this 800 meter runner, but he built it from speed up. One day I wasn't really running track anymore. I mean, I ran some Arco Jesse Owens meets back in the late 80s.
Those are the big meets back in the day. The Arco Jesse Owens game.
You know about those, man. You're definitely California track. So the Hershey Championships, I think they still go along. But I would get 1 or 2 meets a year, play a little football. And then in 1990, I was on the mound playing baseball. I was pitching. Seriously, I was a really good pitcher. I can throw about 80 miles an hour at that age, and I couldn't hit worth a damn though, but I could pitch. I remember one time I was trying to get on base, and there was a ball coming right at my shoulder. I didn't move. I was like, "This is my chance." Because once I get on the bait, I'm still home, And once that ball hit me, the ref was like, you could have moved. Get back over here. I was like, is that a rule? But just about that time, there's a guy named Haddad. His daughter ran for Long Beach Potty eventually Texas. But he told my dad, there's a team called the West Valley Eagles. Man, they're giving out plane tickets to kids to run. If they're down one person in a 4x1, and looking for a tryout. And my dad said, enough said, let's go ahead. He took me off the mound and said, we got a chance to do this. And we drove to a local tiny little park over in Southgate, and not too far away from Bell Gardens, the next city over. And we stopped at this little park. I mean, this park is, maybe 20 square feet. It's just tiny. It's just a little tiny.
Yeah.
You can jump from one end to the other, and he goes from like I said earlier, he's a good motivator. He's a way of bringing your mind to where you are and to seeing bigger things. It's like from this tiny little park, you're going to travel the world. You're going to travel the nation, and you're going to run on tracks, all over and get to the top of the podium. Just know that from this small beginnings, you're going to have big ending. And so I took that to head, and the next thing I know, I'm taking a little drive to the Canoga Park in West Valley from Bell Gardens early in the morning. We had to leave at 6. And my dad was like, "This is that chance, this is your opportunity to get a plane ticket." And that's something that will always resonate in our father-son coaching athlete kind of motto is like earn your plane ticket, meaning qualify first, and then everything else you go for time. So he was like, "This is where you earn your plane ticket," and I was going to run the 100 meters. They gave me some Asics. I can still smell those Asics to this day. That's fresh spike smell. I didn't have any sweat, so I cut off the pajamas I wore, some old sweats, but they gave me a West Valley shirt and said, "Okay, this is where you start. That's where you end. Good luck." And so get in start the standing start position. All the other kids in the midget group were in blocks and everything. I'm looking left and right. It's like, here we go. Gun goes off. Kids go out in first. The competitors go out first, and I go out last. And then by the end of the race, I caught up everybody and ran 11.99. And at the time, the national record was 11.98 for 100 meters. Wow. And at that point, everybody said, "You earned your plane ticket, son. You're on the team." And so from there, next I went to, so that was 100 meters, right? And then they wanted to see if I could run the 400 see if I could be on that relay. And so I earned my first plane ticket to Spokane, Washington. This old black track. I mean, the cinder, it looked like it was made of old tires. And but that wasn't the draw of the meet. There was everybody. Every time I went there, you hear the wind blow, and you heard people saying Obi more. You hear the leaves rustle, and then you hear saying Obi. Everybody Obi, 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 Obi. I said, "What's an Obi?" And my dad kind of started figuring out who this guy was. He was ran for the LA Jets, and he was going to be the competition, not for only me, but for everybody that was in that race for years to come. And my dad said, "This guy, I've been hearing about what he does, so I want you to get out the first 150 to make up the stagger, go as fast as you can." And this is on YouTube. I have it somewhere. Get out as fast as you can, and this guy Obi is gonna come right past you. It's okay. Don't trip. Let him go past, and just know that he's gonna get a little tired, and then the last 100 you run your butt off. Just get into second gear, hit that second win, he would call it. Hit that second win. And so before the race, I see this guy Obi, and I was a little taller for my age at the time. Plus, I was up on he was 11, I was 12 in the division, and so I had him by a good few inches, and he was this tinier guy, and I was like, "Oh, I got Obi. I think I got this." So I got out, and I was in the lane 7. He's probably like lane 4, lane 6, lane 4, and sure enough, my dad, he's clairvoyant. I don't know how he knew how this race was going to go, and I get out, just followed his lead. And at that 200-meter mark, Obi ran past me something crazy. And I was like, I'm glad I had that wherewithal, that conversation with my dad before, because it would have just shocked the hell out of me. Yeah. To see somebody run fast past by you like that. So in my mind, I was like, okay, Dad is right. I'm listening to my dad. I'm following the commandments. And I'm jogging on that straight away. And I hit the button, and something came over me. And I was able to snatch the lead. Well, it ended up being he won by a narrow margin. And we ended up going about 53, 54 seconds at 12 years old. And so at that point, I had the confidence that, oh, okay, this is something that I can do. Had a little bit of success. I've earned some plane tickets. We ended up going to the Junior Olympics in Nebraska that year, where Obi and I would meet up again in the 4x4, and our team prevailed and won in record-breaking time, gold medalist, Junior Olympics. And at that point, it was just catapulted to what you've seen in high school. I end up, just to kind of let you open the window up again, but to finish off my youth, the way I got into the 800, my dad secretly felt that I had the making of a good 800-meter runner, because on the weekends, I would do my 10-mile runs, runs on the beach, distance runs, and then during the week I'll do, a little bit of boxing and some repeats on the grass. And having that top end speed, running 100 and 200 and low 11s, low 23s, going up into 48 as an eighth grader. And he says, all you need to do is just jog out. You don't even have to get anywhere close. Go out in a minute and come back in a minute. You can run 2 minutes or so. So I was so reluctant to run that darn race. The 800 meter is just a scary event. Even if you're in shape, if you've never done it, every 800 I run has felt the same at the end. It hurts. But I ran that first one and I went 220. I just jogged the first 200 and then, I ran the first 200, jogged the rest, and then sprinted it in the last 100. I ended up running 220. And my dad was like, "Oh man, you can really do this." So the next time I run the race, I was at Long Beach Poly, Long Beach Invitational, Long Beach Poly, Long Beach University of Long Beach.
Long Beach State.
Yeah. Long Beach State. And Obie, of all people, was in this race. And so my dad said, just stay behind him 10 meters. And with 300 meters to go, he's going to drop his shoulders. And when he drops his shoulders, that's when you take off running and don't look back. And so this whole race, I'm just waiting I'm standing 10 meters behind. And just the only thing I had in my mind was waiting for Obie to drop his shoulders. And sure enough, with like 250 to go, I seen him drop his shoulders to kind of like shake it off. And I just gunned it. I think because I had nothing else in mind. And I was just focused on that, gunned it, ran past him, and just kept the foot on the gas pedal the last 100 meters. And that day is what started my 800 career. I broke the national record. I went 156.3 from 2 minutes and 20 seconds to 2 weeks before. And that part led on to a string of national records going from 8th grade, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and then 12th grade, which I still hold the national record at 146.45.
Yeah, we're gonna get back to more the what I call the elephant in the room, you and the OB rivalry. But yeah, I want to talk about the early thing because
Yeah.
people don't know this. My best friend in high school was Damon Smith. He was state champion in the 300 hurdles, and Obi was his uncle. And it was weird because Obi was younger than him. It's like Obi's dad had Obi way later.
Oh, okay.
And so I had known Obi as a 7th, 8th grader, and everybody was like, "Oh man, this dude Obi's great, great, great." But then I kept hearing about you, and I didn't know you. I didn't know anything. I was just like, because they were like, "Obi ran 49 as a freshman, or not a freshman, sorry, a 7th grader or whatever." And I was like, "This is crazy." But
he was.
the first thing I remember about you, and let's go back. I think Alexander said it. Let's talk about the first thing I remember about you was your Arcadia your freshman year.
Oh yeah.
Let's. I think you kind of mentioned that. Let's talk about that. That was, I would say, your national or state coming out party.
Right. So,
how did that happen? How did you get there?
So this is so funny. Yeah. I think having a good track record beforehand, and this is before athletic.net. A lot of times coaches would just pencil in a time. I had some newspaper.
You could lie about stuff. You could say I did this, I did that. You could fabricate times.
Right. And so I was one of those athletes that had his time fabricated. Okay. So, I won Junior Olympics the year before. So, 156, and I'm pretty sure that was out there, 156 or a couple 157s. I won the Sunkiss Invitation earlier that year in the 500. So there was some notoriety of, okay, this guy's fast. He's breaking records. My dad had a dream about running the night meet at Arcadia. And he's like, no, you want to run the night, man. I always hear about Arcadia through him. And I mean, this guy, my dad was a track aficionado and student of the sport. Mm-hmm. And he told my coaches, it's like, we need to get him in the night meet. Tell them, I said, Michael, you're going to run 155. You can go 155. I think the time to get in was 155.5. And so he was able to talk to the powers that be at Arcadia and on the phone, right? No text, no email. Yeah. So kind of we got on the phone and with the help of our coaches, Coach Elazar's at Bell Gardens, and they petitioned my time at 155.5 or whatever. And they got me in the race. I was in the night race with these guys as tall kids. I mean, it was my first time with, the big boys, and these guys were like 6'2", 6'4", and 15 people in one race, nighttime. And
5,000 people in the stands.
People, you can sit down with some people. So there was a standing room only. And what I can remember about the race was just being pulled along, just kind of not having really no clue what to do. You know, I usually when I run it the year before, I would run a race and just be an Obea and I in the front, so you kind of have room or space and you know space to think, space to breathe, look around. But there was so many people in the room in the race, I didn't know where I was. You know where I was in the race. I just was caught up in the pack. Um, and then if I can remember anything more, I think around the last 250 to go, I felt claustrophobic. I felt that athletic, that competitive nature come out of me, and I was like, okay, I need to do something. I'm bumped in here. I was still a pretty big kid at the time, but I just felt swarmed in, and I was fresh, and not knowing that I already ran 500 meters, 550. I was like, there's something I have to do. I need to break out. And once I broke out of there and took off, I only thought in my mind is, okay, now I can start running. 200 meters ago, I took off, ended up winning the race, 151.03, breaking the national record for freshmen. Definitely making a name for myself nationwide now as an 800-meter runner. That's where the target on my back was definitely was there. But in my mind at the same time, I thought that was like, okay, I did that and put that to the side. Let me go back and run this 400 meters. You know, I'm 400, 200. I want to be Quincy Watts. I want to be Michael Johnson. But that definitely woke up something in my dad's training cycle at that point where he felt that I could be, make it, break the national record. So at that point, that was starting to be the direction of my training.
I was there that night, and I remember the announcer saying when you won, they didn't know who won. They said, "Who?" And I think he said, "The winner's Granville," or like it was like a shock. Like, who's this freshman? Like I remember you won. It was like, okay, wait, who won?
Yeah, they had to start doing the research. It's like, wait a second. Oh, the guy with his name penciled in won.
Yes. Like the guy, like this Grant, and I remember, and that's when I remember being like, oh man, that's the dude they were talking about against Obie and all that. And
That's wild. That's wild. Just kind of see that story start to develop again. It's definitely cool. Definitely cool. Something that just even seeing that happen. So I ended up running that year, still committed to the 400 meters. So I went to qualify for state in the 400. And that was the year the state meet got rained out. So I was
Cerritos
going
College.
to Cerritos College. So my goal was I was end up going about 47 seconds, 48, 47 seconds. Yeah, in my freshman year. And I was going against a guy named Calvin Harrison. And they were, men among boys, doing him and his brother, Calvin and Alvin. There's another guy named Andre Deschashore.
Andre Deschashore from Taft.
Yeah, Tab. He ended up going to play football at UW. So what happened was, ran that 400 and I had the dog in me. I was ready. I felt like having the 800-meter background under my training. I felt like I could double back and try to beat them. At least take. My whole goal was to win. And I woke up that morning. It rained overnight, and then it was wet in the morning, but it was nice fluffy clouds, and it didn't look like it was going to rain. And then get a call and said the meet's canceled. And that was just so devastating. It was like we get this training in the night before, and then they cancel the meet. And then later I found out the powers that be from Northern California was like, no, you guys can't do this. So they ran the meet, I guess, 3 weeks later.
They ran a repeat state meet.
Repeat state meet. So some people didn't come, but for sure Calvin came down. He came and ran and ends up winning. I took third as a freshman, running the 400. This Shore was second. So that was last time running the 400 in kind of any championship form. After that, it was all 800s.
Sophomore year, you run the 800 and 148.98. Then you win the California State Championship as a sophomore. You've also won the Arcadia Invitational. Then your junior year, you run 147.96. But then you're by Aaron Richburg in the California State Championships. Talk about how that progression happened where you keep growing and growing, you improve, and then your junior year, you're in your best shape possible, and then you get upset.
Yeah. Oh, man, that was definitely it shook up the world, shook up my world for sure. That was a year that I was really gunning for. I had my mind outside of high school. I was really just seeing times as just a stepping stone to get what my main goal was to be an Olympian, was to be an international 800-meter runner. In my mind, it was almost to go pro. I was hungry. I felt like I was one step any meet I can do 145. I almost, in a way, for lack of a better word, I respected athletes, was a good sportsman, but I didn't see them. I was like, I had my own path. I was looking up here and sometimes not looking at the steps that I was doing at the time. So and it goes to show I was really running fast. So there was granted, yeah, I'm looking at the stars because I'm like, that's where I'm heading. Now this is haven't been done before. This is uncharted territory in this 800 meter in U.S. high school history. You know, my dad would have he would have pictures on the wall of people who had faster times than me in the state and the nation. And every time I would pass somebody's time, he'll take their picture off the wall. So each time we're just snatching off pictures, we're eating, and having this on my mind. And then here comes state. The year before was one of the best races I've been in. It was like 5 lead changes, 6 lead changes between Obi, Obi, uh, um,
I remember
you got from
Vondre
Bakersfield,
Armour,
Vondre Armour, yeah,
Richburg.
Richburg, yeah, and it was just a great race where he threw strategy out the door and he just competed and ended up winning as a sophomore. One of the coolest races to watch and fun races to be in after the fact, right? And then coming into my junior year, I felt like there was no competition in there because I was really winning the races by a lot. Obi was running a 400 that day, and I had beaten uh, Aaron Richburg a number of times, and I really didn't have him on my radar. Fast forward to 20 years later and stuff. When we went to Union Logan High School or Union City High School, it's Logan High School.
It's James Logan,
yeah,
High School in Union City.
And James Logan, and I ended up meeting Aaron Richburg for the first time after the fact, and hearing his side of the story was something else. Again, his inspiration was taking me down, and that's how he woke up every morning with that on his mind, with that strategy in mind. And just to hear his side of it, that's what sports is all about. You bring it to the table in that highest level of competition. So anyway, I get out there with the goal in mind, just winning it, walking away with it, and thinking that I wasn't going to be challenged, but only challenge was to try to run that third 200 or try to break a national record or break some kind of record, or at least a PR. And I get out and just fast forward to the last 200 meters, Aaron Richburg passes by me. And in my mind, I was like, the audacity of this individual to pass me upon this part of the race. I was just so exalted. And instead of just kind of gradually, getting, building up speed and coming off and giving him the respect that he deserved, I was like, I'll show him. And I just went balls out right away, past him to try to take the spirit away from him. I was like, okay, you messed up. And I just put all my gas on that turn going into the last 100. And I'm in the lead. I'm going there, and I'm starting to hear the crowd cheer. I'm like, man, they're cheering loud. I can kind of see the clock. I said, this is not going to be any crazy time. Why are they cheering like this? And then I did the mistake, and I looked back. And Aaron looked at me in the eyes. He had the eyes of a bulldog, and it really just took that breath away from me. I was shocked. I was like, damn, he's really coming after me. And at that point, I lost my stride. And he was already the momentum. And then at the tape, he went on and went past me. Ended up being the state champion in 1995. Man, it was a great race to him. More power to him. I'm glad we been able to break bread to this day and be friends. But at the time, man, I was seeing red. I was passed out. I was almost thinking about giving up track after that. I was so embarrassed, so not understanding what my place was in this world. What's all this training for? I mean, I imagine how Mike Tyson felt. I've had that kind of like, whoa, how does this happen? And it was very humbling.
I was there for that race. I was at Cerritos College. So everything you saying, I watched.
Yes.
And I remember the crowd. And I remember you looking back at him like you saying it. It was like the crowd got loud. You weren't supposed to be beaten.
Yeah.
It was like when Tyson got beat by Holyfield. It was like no one's beating Michael Granville. And I remember it was like you sped up like you said, and then but he just but I think
he wanted it.
He wanted it, and he had a great collegiate career after that. So you think
about
Auburn,
that.
He wasn't a bum. He ran at Auburn, and I think was very good.
Yeah.
I mean, but I remember watching that, and it was like, wow. And that's another, rivalry right there. But that
For
was
sure.
in person. It was phenomenal to see because at the time people were like, no one can beat Michael Granville, but everyone can be beat. Everyone wakes up in the morning.
Yeah.
That's how it goes. That's why I tell athletes, you got to go hard. You got to focus. You got to want it. You got to.
And
You can
just
beat
to continue
anybody
what
if
you
you
said,
focus.
yeah. And I think you said that right, Coach, because I can say, I would say this to my athletes, later on as a coach, and I tell them, I said, you know how I won most of my races? I said, overhearing my athletes saying, "Oh, Granville's in a race. Oh, this is a race for second." And in my mind, I was like, "Well, you already lost. Like you already telling yourself you're not going for it." I said, no matter who's in the race, it can be Usain Bolt, it can be Allison Felix, it can be whoever. It said everybody has equal opportunity to win. And if you line up on that line at the same time, when that gun goes off, go for it. But if you come up to the race saying that, oh, this is a race for second place, a race for third place, you already get starting off uphill. And I truly believe I won the most of my races like that. And that day, Aaron didn't have that in mind when he lined up.
Michael, no, let's just talk the elephant in the room. The rivalry between Michael Granville and William Obie Moore. If you don't know, you're like, oh, whatever. But if you knew, this was like Ali Frazier. I remember at Arcadia every year, and it was always, and that's why I always say it was. You said earlier, so as a youth, you guys both ran the 4 and the 8. As you got to high school, Obie became more of a quarter miler, 200-meter runner. I knew Coach James very well. Obie used the 800 as a training base. He'd always run the 800 in indoors up to Arcadia, and then he'd kind of drop it and then run the 4 and 2. But every year, you guys would meet at Arcadia in the 800. And I'm going to tell you this: at Arcadia, most of the races that the fans get up for, like the 4x1, the 100. But man, when you and Obie would get on the track at the 800 meters Arcadia, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And I think his freshman year, he was, but I think it was a 149.14, and you ran, I don't know if it was 148 or 147. But
that was it. Yeah, that was his. So
let's talk about you guys. Just that, and I guess your age group rivalry.
Yeah. So we have the age group rivalry. I mean, Obie was a name that was said around our house. It was definitely like he was like a family member. Some of my siblings would say, like, when they got a chance to meet him or see him, it's like they felt like they knew him because his name was said around our house so often. I mean, as an adult, and when Google was starting to get popular in my mind, and just kind of self-glorifying to see what Google says about me, and I'll type in my name. And the thing is, it's like, well, you might also know Obie. Whenever I put my name in, even Google knows. It's like, also people look up Obie. So that just goes to show like how synonymous our names were growing up in track and field in the 90s. I already told you about how I first met him on that second turn in the 400 meters in Spokane. And then, so we kind of had, and it was the rivalry started there because I thought I won the race. My dad thought we won the race. They actually disqualified me. I felt like the powers that be were so shocked that somebody got so close to Obie, and this is my conspiracy theory. And they did like, okay, let's disqualify him. It's like he ran on the line 3 steps, and we all was looking at the race. I even had it on tape. It was like, no, there's no way he was on there. It was like, okay, just take second place and shut up. I took second place and shut up. And like, can we get our $25 back for protest? No, we keeping that. Okay, cool. I'll take second place. But that kind of started the run, and then. This is so fun at Nebraska. So it was at this point they knew that
I heard about that Junior Olympics, right? Nebraska.
The Junior Olympics in Nebraska, 1990, and it was Obie with LA Jets, and it was me with West Valley Eagles, and our team was comprised and trying to figure out what leg Obie was going to be on, and then I needed to be on the leg after him to kind of make up the lead that he would establish. And so as we're going up to the, off the warm up field to the track, they start lining everybody up in their lines, and they kept moving. People were moving Obie around. So every time they move Obie, they're kind of okay. He's okay. And if he was an anchor, I would have to be anchor too. So we were moving around, and I'm hearing accents I've never heard for the first time. Coming from East Los Angeles, I'm hearing people from Florida, New York, and there's a lot of just things going on. So you don't have time to get nervous and just trying to figure out, okay, where am I at? Where's Obie going to be? So he ends up going on second leg, and then they put me on third leg. And that day is when I pretty much felt like I earned a scholarship to any college I wanted to go to as a 12-year-old. Obi had put out a lead like he does, and I'm pretty sure the guy was 80 meters ahead of me. It looks like it could have been, but he was definitely out there. And the only thing I had on my mind was that competitive nature, that dog in me. And I was like, I can do this. I can catch him. I don't want to let my teammates down. And I actually wanted to see if I can show that I'm just as fast as Obi. If he can put a lead on him, I can catch it. And I get that baton and I snatch it out my Jalal's hands and my teammate. And I ran maybe the first 10, 20 meters in the second lane. It's just like, just ran. I was like, oh, let me get in the first lane. And mind you, this is pretty much my first year of track, really at this level. And to make a long story short, I caught the guy. I mean, I went, caught him, passed him a little bit just at the end and passed the baton to Amon Lachard. And Amon ran a tactical last 400 meters. He let the guy get in front of him and he came back and won. And so that was like pretty much the start of our kind of a rivalry with him. And, the way it would go, I would be, since I was the top of the midget group, so we didn't compete against each other the next year in 1991. And then, so in 1992, my 8th grade year, I was 14, he was 13, and here he comes Obi. And Obi, he did a lot. He broke every record he could at the midget age, I think that at that point. So he was up to youth. So Obi's back in our mind again. And so I would run. And there's also another guy named Jason Johnson. That was another guy that was from Louisiana that was on my radar to beat. And at this point, I feel a little confident of racing against Obi. And we raced the 800, raced the 400, and I won that year. I won that year. I won Junior Olympics in the 4 and the 8, and I think in both relays as well. And so at that point, I was like, okay, going my freshman year in high school, and again, I'm a year older, so I don't see nothing about Obi then. And then my sophomore year, I don't remember running him. I don't think he ran. No, he didn't run the Arcade in the 800 that year. If he does, I don't remember. But he did. He did decide to run state that year. He ran, and at that point, I was like, that their mood changes when Obi's in the race. That's one thing that will always happen with me. Like if I can be in the race, I remember I'll show up and see who's running. Okay, Obi's running the 400. I run the 800. Okay, Obi's running 2 and the 1 in the relay, so the 4 is fine. So, or if you see Michael Granville and Obi in the same, like, oh my gosh, conversation's over, guys. It's no more jokes. This day's for real. And that's one thing Obi would do for me. Like whenever, obviously, just seeing him in any capacity that you can at that time was a treat for us. But when he's in your race, it's not a treat. You have to run the best that you can because that guy is disciplined. He's focused, and he's definitely doing his best every time, which was incredible. So when I saw that he was in the state final, or he was in the 800 meters at the state in 1994. I was like, oh man, this has changed the whole dynamic. Yeah, we got Andre in there, we had Aaron. I was like, oh man, what's going to happen? So I stuck to my race. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take it out the first 200, establish the pace, and kind of ease up. I used to run it, especially the early years.
On the first 2, chill the middle 2,
chill the middle
4, and then last 2,
Then the last 2, and I was like, okay, I'll try that again, but get out and kind of establish where I am. And then take it from there. I get out, and then Obi's like, oh, no, not you. He took it out past me, and then I'm like, okay, let me stay behind him. And then Vondre passed me. Next thing I know, I'm like in 5th place going into the Bell lap. And I was like, wait a second, no, this can't happen. And it kind of went back, reminded myself of what I did in the first Arcadia meet, but a little bit sooner. I was like, I need to get out of here. I need to get up here where the race is. So I remember just kind of doing a running back moves, kind of dodging out to the right, getting out so I can get to the outside at the Bell lap, charging to the front to the 3rd position. No, it got back up to Obi because Obi was still moving. He went across like around 49, 50 seconds.
Yeah.
And at this point, and then in my mind, I'm like, this is Obi, so you got to respect this time. If this was somebody else going out for it, I was like, okay, they're going to come back. And I was like, hey, I said, these guys don't know, but this is Obi up here, so let me get up here, kind of tell him and see what's going on. And sure enough, he maintained that pace. He was going pop, pop, pop. And then I felt Vondre come past me with about leading up to the 200-meter march. At that point, it's like, let me just tell on him. And then because he must have won, he probably won state the year before. Vondre is a very credited 800-meter runner. Went on to Arizona State, did his thing there. So no, he was a 400-meter runner as well. So his speed, you have to respect his speed. But coming off, my speed said today's the day, and kind of like what happened the following year to me with Aaron, I did the same thing to Vondre, passed him on the last 100, and came across with one of probably the best pictures I've ever had, taken by Kirby Lee, coming across the finish line with my hands up. So so Obi definitely helped out with that time going out at 49, but we would always meet up at Arcadia. Ever since that point, I would love to have seen him because I would always do Mount Sac the next week in the 400 meters and was hoping to run against him, kind of not hoping. So that was the week he wouldn't really run the 400 that week. I think he would probably run the 800 again and do a lot more relays. So we never really got a chance to run that 400 against each other again.
Yeah, we'll discuss that. That was actually kind of going towards, I think, our next question. But yeah, Obi would always run the 400. He would run the 800 Arcadia every year. He actually ran it every year, and he'd always see you. So it was every year. His freshman year, I think you were clearly ahead of him. But I remember going to state because people were mad. Why didn't Obi run the 4? If he ran the 4, but I knew how Coach James trained him. Coach James wanted Obi to be really strong and to try to do everything in the summer. I wanted him to run Junior Olympics, Olympic trials. So he would establish his base. So Obi, he ran the 8 series. I would talk to him. He ran the series, but he knew he was a quarter miler. So, but he ran that, and so that's where we're going to the next question. I think Alexander will ask you, but it always got to the point where it's like, okay, we always see Obi run against Michael in the 8. What are they going to do when we see the 4? Because no one saw that. So
yeah.
So by this point, you become arguably the #1 high school track and field recruit in the United States with offers from every major track and field program in the country. Talk more about the prestige of being in the conversation of being the #1 recruit in the nation, the pressure to pick a school, and some of the things that were said and offered to you during your recruiting process.
So this is a part where my dad was, a big part of my life and decision. Early on, I think all the way up to the last minute, I was going to go to USC. I really felt like I was going to go to USC. Yeah, and I didn't really go on any other recruitment trips. My dad was like, well, there's no reason. He wanted me to stay home, close to the family, so I only went on 2 recruitment trips. Actually, 1, and then at the last minute, I went on 1 to UCLA because I think my dad was not happy about something. I can't remember what changed his mind. And one day he's like, nope, we're not going to USC, we're going to UCLA. And I know Stanford called. I would talk to Stanford. I would talk to Coach Fry. He was at North Carolina.
Yeah.
Great conversation.
Oregon had to call you. I'm thinking Arkansas had to call you at the time. John McDonald. I'm thinking everyone had to call you. Everyone had to call you. Were you not? Was it just, were you naive, or was it just like, I'm staying home? I mean, but at the time, Arkansas had the triple crowns.
I was just obedient. Like I didn't get my dad had pretty much a lockdown on it. And it's funny at the point. I mean, I was embarrassed at the point when I moved up here to run for up here, meaning Northern California, by Stanford, to run with the Nike Track Club. And I remember seeing Vin Lanana, who was the coach and at the time, head coach, and just kind of seeing him because I know there was a kind of a rift, a bad conversation him and my dad's had on the phone. And about recruiting and everything, and it ended up my dad probably was hanging up on this. Back you can hang up on people and just press the button.
Yeah. So, yeah. He's like, I don't like this. Bye.
Yeah, bam. And so it looked like when Ron Ellis was a coach at USC, it was definitely a fit, but I forget what happened. I really forgot what happened, what made the change. And one day my dad woke me up, was like, you're going to UCLA. I was like, oh, are we? Okay. And so he calls Larson and John Smith and says, we want to make the change. We want to do this. Because I don't even remember having a recruitment trip with him. I had one recruitment trip. With him. Yes, I do remember. It was USC and then UCLA. And then my dad calls us like, we're changing. So this was like the last week that you could, it was like in April. It was like the last week that you can.
Like the early signing period before you could.
Yeah, and so
that might have been
feel like,
November. Back then, it was November. It was like you guys during the fall. They recruit everybody and sign everybody during the fall. I think
so
before you.
yeah, I missed that. Yeah, it wasn't the
Oh, you didn't
fall.
sign early. Okay, so you were
No,
late period.
late. It was in the spring. It was like definitely around Arcadia time, like in
Oh
April,
wow.
late March or April for sure. And so that's pretty much how the recruitment. Yes, it was cool getting the offers and from every college you can think of. Envelope, it was just envelopes coming in every day to
That's what I was
coaches
gonna say.
and
How many
whatnot.
letters did you have? You had to have
Oh,
hundreds.
hundreds of letters, and they would get hundreds. And I wish I would have kept some of those, but no, I mean, it was from Harvard, it was from
Yeah.
Florida, Texas, every school you can think of. And it would just show what their weather was there, what they offer. And it was definitely flattering, just to be able to live up to what my dad said earlier, is just like, we're not going to pay, I was able to go to college on a scholarship, to have it, to be able to continue my education and to be able to continue my track. My whole goal still was, being an Olympian, and I remember it's this NIL stuff is really important. Looking back at
Oh
it, it's like, man,
yeah.
that NIL would have been great back then, especially
Oh
being
yeah.
from
You and
from
Obi.
a family. Yeah, right.
You
It's
guys
just
would you guys would need to go to college. They
no,
would
right. And
you guys would have six
we were
figures.
getting stuff. So I remember uh there was one point where we were getting, because I qualified after winning the state meet and breaking the national record. I had the A standard for the Olympic trials.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, the Olympic Committee or USOC, I guess, is that what it is?
USATF, yeah.
USATF
USATF, yeah.
would pay for your ticket to the event and a coach or so. So I
Mm-hmm.
was able to have that paid for. And I remember getting a lot of donations sent to us and from the local markets and things to kind of help with the accommodations. And then my dad said he got some call that we have to be careful with what we're receiving because of NCAA, which was just like, what? So that kind of put a scare on my dad with that, because I thought there was a moment that we were thinking about just forgoing college and trying to go pro,
Mm-hmm.
which was something to think about. But my dad was like, you know what? Let's stop getting this money and let's just focus on you going to college, and which was a shock to me, because I thought that he wanted to kind of, because his whole goal was us to stay together as a coach and athlete. And that was the reason why he had to hang up on some of those coaches, because he felt like he would be able to get on their coaching staff to continue to coach me. And I think we can all understand that even being a coach myself, it'd be hard to get somebody else to come in on a program that you already have established. So that was something that he heard from each and every institution. And at that point, it's just like, all right, well, just go ahead and go to college, and then maybe we can link back up after college, which never happened though.
Wow, that is
Yeah.
just very quickly. I'll speak on that. You're right about that. There's a lot of you guys had that dynamic. I remember Michelle Carter, who won the Olympics in the shot put. Her dad played for the 49ers and
Yeah.
got silver medal in Olympics. But Michelle Carter's dad, it was Michael Carter. He has a
Yes.
national record in the shot put, over 80 feet.
Still.
He coached Michelle at Texas. That was one of the deals. Like, okay, wherever my daughter's going, I'm coaching her.
Oh,
and
so
obviously
that's cool.
It worked out. But before we go to the next question, I want to just go back a little bit because we're going to talk about some other stuff. But what about? I remember Mount Sac your senior year. Talk about that. I saw it on Facebook. There was a post, Brian Howard. I think it's Vince. I remember at Mount Sac your senior year, because that's what kind of going back to OB was like. Everybody wanted to see you run the 4 and the 2, and I remember being there. And you, it was the first time, at least high school, not youth age. I never watched youth age track, but you ran the 400 and the 200, and it was like amazing.
Yeah,
I think 21.3 or 46 low, but
46 low and 21.3. Yeah, I took third
and everybody
place.
was like, "Oh my God, this guy!"
Yeah, I was. I mean, secretly, this whole time I started off as a 100, 200 meter runner. I was, my dad would always train me getting out of the blocks during league meets. Those were a lot of the races I would do to get my speed. I was, secretly, still wanting the gun and get one of those times. But that senior year you brought it, it's really funny you brought it up. That year, our goal was to make it to state in the 800 and the 200, to do an 800, 200 double.
Wow.
And so during the during all the so in league, I did 8-2 league championship, and then after that Southern section 8-2. Then I qualified for just before the Masters, I qualified for the Masters, but then the powers that be said, oh, there was a discrepancy with the timing system, and your time is tied or something with this other guy. So can you come like on a Saturday in between the 2 weeks off, and you two would just run a 200? And we're like, what?
I
And
recall
so
that there was a guy in my high school that had to do it. He was younger than me.
right.
Like, there was time. I think they made them do a rerun of a couple races.
Yeah, and at that point, we're just like, you know what? Don't worry about it. Let's just focus on this 800, which I'm glad we did. But yeah, that was my goal, to do the 800, 200. My dad felt like the 800 meters would eventually be a sprint, which it is. You know, he's on an international level. I mean, you got kids, and check this out. He wanted me to get out in the blocks in the 800 meters.
Wow.
And he says, he goes, you got kids out here running 50 seconds, 51 seconds in the open 400, and they're getting out of blocks. He goes, how come you can't get out of the blocks in the 800? First, it was going to be like kind of a mind game for my competitors. Imagine how that feels, you in 800 and somebody next to you getting in the blocks.
Oh my goodness.
But that was his goal.
You're really going to quit. Like, what's this dude? I'm quit. Like, I quit right now.
You see people taking their shoes off right there. Where's the hot dog at? I'm about to get out of here, right? But that's how his goal was in the 800 was to see it that way, and that's the way I trained. So doing that 800 and 200, I think is a great complementary to each other. One, because you have that much time between events, and then two, it's just that was that type of way of training, just as a sprinter with endurance, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was the whole goal with Mount Sac. That was me, you know, kind of introducing myself and getting in a hot race with people who was going to be in that final and the state. So I was in there with Marcus. That's
what we said. Marcus Hollowell, Brian Howard.
Yeah,
these are my people. But
yeah, right.
Vince Williams.
Vince Williams.
These were guys that won state. Felix Sanchez. I remember being like, oh, this dude's. In the 400, everybody kind of knew. I think the shock was the 200.
Yeah,
when you ran that. I don't know what place you got, but you ran like 21-3.
I got third place.
Yeah, and that was crazy. Like, dude, this dude's a half miler, and he beat. He's like third in this. He beat like the best dudes in the state.
That was one of those. That's one of those races that resonates in my mind to this day. Where I'm like, hey, I snuck one in on that one.
Yeah, you snuck it in, and everyone went crazy and loved it.
Right. But it was good. Amazing to see what it have turned out if they didn't have me do that random race on a Saturday, you know, between meets, you know, because I still had that in mind to do that 8 and the 2, but the way things unfold afterwards, you know, I got the 800 meter record. Well, think about it, because I got the 800 meter record in the prelims, so that would have been kind of fresh for that too later on. You're like, okay, not thinking about it, you know. But I did feel fine after that 800, after the record too. I really felt like that was probably the easiest 800 I ever ran. Like, as far as when I say easy, not feeling the lactic acid, you know, immediately afterwards. I didn't feel like I would have been laid out. I definitely felt it in the legs, but I didn't feel like I recovered after pretty quick. I guess the endorphins kicked in after seeing a new record. So I was like, okay, I feel fresh.
And I think that Alexander was going to go there next, but I'll jump in and just take that question. Let's talk about it. We talked about your recruiting, all that at your top of the game. Obviously, I think at the time, Pete Richardson was a national record holder, 800 meters. That had to be the goal after all.
They had 2 belts. Sorry, Coach Chris. They had 2. The belt wasn't unified. I unified the belt. It was Pete Richardson with the UF.
And George Kirsch, right? George Kirsch.
And then George Kirsch had the national. Pete Richardson went 147.3 in a all high school event, actually the state meet. And then George Kirsch did it in 146.58 or so at the Golden West in like 87 at the Golden West up in Oakland or Berkeley.
Yeah. So let's talk about, I guess, that state prelim race, or let's talk about you attacking that record before the final, because I know that was one of our next questions, because we've already gone there. But let's discuss that. That's something I think a lot of people want to know. Talk to us about that.
Okay, so that was the last kind of 2 papers on the wall, you know, that we had up for that, and then we had some things, you know, looking for Olympics and 144 and this and that. But getting the A standard, that was also on the wall, getting that A standard. And so the prelims that day, usually my dad would have deal with the administration where I didn't have to go to school on certain big meets. He liked me to just be bubble wrapped, so to speak, just kind of just lay low. Everything's laid out for you. Just focus on one task at hand.
And Michael, you're on mute. Okay.
Been honored, my sister and I, who was a valedictorian, and we were honored for a top 10 GPA for seniors that year. And I was top 5. And so my dad's like, okay, you guys get there and then get back immediately right back afterwards because I don't want you guys all out in this blah, blah, blah. So we get there, get the awards. There's conversations afterwards, but we, kind of meander our way back to the car to get back home. But my dad was a stickler on time, and he felt like I wasn't really focused on the task at hand. I can understand the pressures that he felt I only had 2 more, opportunities to break this record and to get the A standard, which I wasn't, looking at myself back then. There was no way I wasn't focused on that. I was focused on it. That was something. And if it was up to me, I wouldn't have even gone to get the award, but it was just like, just do this for the school, and not for the school, for myself, but also just for the optics. And so, so I go and come back, and my dad just blew it. He had a tantrum and just kind of knocked off everything off the wall. And my brother comes up to me and says, in a way of making things seem like if I break that record, everything will be at peace. He sits up next to me. He's about 5 years old at the time. And he says, Tutu, whatever you do, can you please break that record? Tutu is a nickname they call me. And I looked at him and said, all right, I'm going to be a good big brother. I'm going to break that record for you today, just to make peace in the house. And so at that point, I had my, I was the focus of just fiery focus of a lion that day. You couldn't even talk to me. I think I was kind of, upset at how the whole thing unfolded, and even having the idea that, I wasn't this it's like you're telling me that I'm not focused about something I'm about to do. Oh, I'll show you. It's one of those things like, okay, I'll show you. It's one of those things where if you poke a bear, just watch out. It's just so I think one thing my dad knew, he didn't know how to poke, how to get me riled up.
Push those buttons.
He knows how to push those buttons. So he definitely found that one combination button. And so I was quiet doing the ride there. And because in my mind that whole time was to say, okay, I'm about to just sprint this whole race, man. I'm about to leave it all on the track. If I can't make it the whole 800 meters, oh well. If I die at the 600 meters, oh well, that's what happened. But this is what I'm going to do. And so I remember my dad interrupted the silence as I was warming up for the 800 for the prelims that Friday night. And he goes, Mike, hey. And I looked at him. I'm like, what you want, man? I didn't say it, but that's about
Man, I'm sick of you, Dad. I'm sick of you.
And he goes, hey, look at the flags. And there's triangle flags they have on the infield to kind of block you off from the shot putters or discus throwers, what have you. And he looked and said, look, the wind's not blowing. This is the night to do it. And I looked, and that's for true. And this little backstory, that whole year, every race in 800 that I did, it felt like and I know it was, like a wind all around the track. It was a windy year. And this was the first time that the wind was not blowing during the track meet. When he said that, that really did kind of bring me to, a different focus that way. I was like, oh, you're right. And like, there is no wind. And that we kind of broke the silence there. And it's like, there's another confirmation that this is the night to do it. And that's what I did, man. The gun start. I've just recently got the video of it, the video recording. I remember my dad had recording before I went to UCLA. There's like the last time I saw it, and then fast forward 26 years later, one of the my fellow Bell Gardens alumni, his father would record all my races. I need to get back to Mr. Roybal and see if he found some more races. But he says, Michael, I've looked all over YouTube, and I noticed that you don't have the race. My dad has the race. So we made I'm like, man, let me see this race. So going back to it, I was able to see, now looking back at the recording, I seen how I was. I felt so much energy coming out of my pores. I felt like I can barely feel the ground when I was doing my pre-race kind of bounce and whatnot. And
you felt it that day. Not to jump in, that was that day you were feeling it. I always say,
yeah, you hit it on the head. That's the way to say it, Coach. I was feeling it. Like I felt like the bounce I had, and even to this point, looking at the video, I didn't want nobody to touch me, to take that energy. I didn't want to get touched. And so every time somebody I felt like would come and try to say, good luck, I see him coming.
You didn't want to hear that. No.
I didn't want to hear it.
Stay out of my zone. Today is me. I've had athletes like, listen, I love when my athletes like, Coach, leave me alone. I love that.
Yeah.
Because I knew they were ready.
Yep. And so, looking at the video, that was just like that, Coach. And I had my mind, and then I had my eye on the refs. When they say, okay, it's time to come out to the track, I was the first one onto the track, and just like the boxer going to the ring, just dipping under the ropes and just getting in on the field, wanting to feel that track, wanted to get, just know where my lane is. Just start just where's the gun at? Start it now. And as soon as they went up there, I remember the gun started, and I took off. And really not feeling anything that first lap. I just seen some of the pictures, still shots. Even looking back at the video confirms what I know I was feeling. That I was just had a laser beam focus, and my whole goal was to run that third 200 as fast as I can. I told you earlier in the conversation, I had my combination of the first 200, jog the middle, run the last 200. But this time it was the first 200. Pace myself into the first 400, and then run that next 200 like I'm running that 200 meter at my side.
That middle 400 to 600 meters that you never pressed.
Yeah, that I never pressed. I went after it, and not knowing where I would be in no man's land either before or afterwards. But as soon as I heard that bell lap, I took it as a gun, starting a whole new race, and took off. And then looking back at the recording, I can truly see how I just really started pressing that turn, going into the 100, going into the 600. And at that 600 meter mark is where my dad would usually be on my races. And I would hear him calling out a time, calling out a coaching cue or something. And I could be in a crowd full of thousands of people. When I'm focused, I don't hear anything. I just my breath or my dad. Whenever he would say so, I can always hear him wherever he is in the crowd or on the track. And at this point, I was kind of cueing my attention to what he was going to say, and I didn't hear anything. And then this is that part of the track where there was nobody on there. It was a practice field there, so there was nobody. It was between the crowds, between the audience, and I'm feeling too. I had just ran this third 200 as fast as I could. My legs feel fine. I'm moving pretty good. I was like, okay, just keep the pace going, bro. You all right? You alive?
Roll with it.
Roll with it, right? And then as I get off with 100 meters to go, the 700 meter mark, then I hear my dad. He's on the other side. He knew something. I guess he stood over there and he started, boy, you got this. And he told me the time, 128, 129, 130. I was like, doing the math. I was like, oh, man, I need to keep this going. I'm about to get 125. And I came through, and that 50 meters ago, bro, I started hearing the crowd started coming in. I started feeling my legs swell up. And I just felt like, man, just don't trip up. Just lift one leg. You go through your coaching cues. Elbows.
Arms, swing.
Arms, put the arms up, lift off. And I'm just seeing it. I'm feeling the smile on my face. And I come across and I see it. I'm like, man, I got this record. And went 145, 146. And the crowd went nuts at that point. You can hear the announcer call out the time. Put my hands up, just go ahead and dab out anybody that wanted to get a high five, And the funny part is that I was still kind of having that feeling after everything calmed down, and I wasn't going to run the next day. I was still kind of upset about how they went, kind of overwhelmed about getting the record and just about a lot of things. And I was like, I'm not running tomorrow. And my dad was able to motivate me. Not just motivate. It wasn't like I was motivated, but he was able to talk to me in a certain way, apologize for his actions, which actually was the biggest thing to do that helped me out, and just said, you know what, let's do this. Do this for the fans, man. This is what he said. Do this for them, because people are going to be out there knowing that what you just did, it's going to be twice as many people that the next day. And sure enough, there's people hopping over the fence the next day. It was a super crowd. And what he asked me to do, he said, go back to, just don't worry about the race. Just win the race. You're out here, finish what you started, which are things that still live with me to this day. Finish what you start. Still, overcome adversity, and like you said, start from something small, because you're going to have bigger endings. And having that coming out that next day and having that state title, some records come and go, which happens, but that state title is something that still sticks with me. And as a person, as a coach, as a dad, just to be able to overcome whatever fears I had or animosity I had. It's like, you know, the bigger picture was getting out there and finishing the job, which I'm glad I did the next day.
It's weird that you said that because people came out there. I know it sounds funny because high school track, but people paid money to watch you and Obie and Marion Jones.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, there's names. Like I'm
can you
talking
tell them
about
the bench that was going on in the stands?
Like I was there. I won $10. I lost $10.
There we go.
So people don't understand that. Like the gambling in the stands was real.
Yeah.
Like people were gambling over that. So
Arcadia was the biggest one.
it was the biggest.